So one of your big shows is Lucifer, which is amazing. I love that show. And I didn't even realize that it was a part of the DC comic world,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, like, of course. So what was it like directing on that show? Because literally Lucifer Morningstar is one of the most powerful DC characters out there as the fallen angel. And you were, on that for a long time directing that. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was first of all, like that show was my first real opportunity to direct in television. I came through this program, the Warner Brothers TV directing program, and in order to get into that program, you had to have a show that was willing to take a shot on you to come and direct an episode. And I was really lucky in the second season. Jerry Bruckheimer Productions, decided to give me a crack, and
Legend.
yeah, I mean the dude. I mean, I always tell this story, but like Bad Boys was the movie that kind of really went off in my mind as like, oh, this could be something I would love to do
Hell yeah.
one day. And so it was a very cool experience to have my first real sort of paying job to be for his company. And he's obviously a legend, but like he watches every cut of every show they produce.
Oh, wow.
So he's very aware of what's happening. Like nothing gets past him. So yeah, just joining that team, really not knowing where it was going to go. Like I kind of felt like maybe I'm going to treat this as if I'll never get another shot, So I showed up and really just swung for the fences, and it ended up connecting. And that one little mid-season episode that I did for them, called God Johnson, it ended up sort of paving the way to directing every season, remaining for them, and then doing their musical episode and doing their series finale and all that. So just getting back to sort of walking into that universe, and Lucifer Morningstar as a DC character, everyone was very aware of the sort of origin story of that character. But I mean, between the showrunners, Joe and LD, and the actors and Tom who embody the character, it's like they sort of created their own unique status of this character. Like what this ended up being for television felt very different than what the comic book character to I mean, even in like he's depicted as a blonde, yeah. So like even the physical depiction is different, but just yeah, Tom made it his own, and being a top 10 Netflix show of all time and all that stuff. Like obviously the showrunners and the writers and everybody who was involved, but Tom also just like played that character so beautifully, and it was a pleasure to be a part of it.
Yeah, you mentioned, like the blonde and the, dark hair kind of differences. It's like, did you find, kind of audience and fans out there maybe like, pointing out like, hey, that's different, but then they kind of watch it, and then Tom, like you said, makes it his own, and then, you all come in and create something special and unique. Did you find that, an interesting relationship with the fans of the comic book?
Well, anytime I would show up to direct an episode, and I'd be in the writer's room, and I'd spend time with the producers and stuff like that, you'd walk into a room and it'd just be wall to wall covered in fan art, gifts that were being given to the writers, amazing stuff. Tom had like collections of things in his trailer. Like they really cherished these things that came from the fans. And so, it was really heartwarming to see how connected to the fans the showrunners were, and the creators were, and the actors and everybody. And you really did feel like, you wanted to pull it off for them,
That's great.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things you can do when making TV and film, or really anything that you're kind of bringing to the public, is pay homage to the people that support it, the people that are fans of it, and going out of your way to make sure like you show up for them, because they're the ones who are watching it, right? And when you start to go against that, and you're going to have a disaster. You're not going to have a show, right? I'm kind of curious, like, because Tom is such an incredible actor, like he's phenomenal. Over your period of directing over all those seasons, did you see or notice the writers kind of catering to him and who he was, and it became more enveloped in his personality and how he acted and all that stuff? Like, did it become more?
I think, first of all, this is like the most collaborative person you can imagine. Like, Tom is so collaborative, so open for input, wants to have these creative conversations with people. So it was truly a blessing to be able to, have him front the show and carry it in that way. Once again, so many talented actors in that show. But of course, Tom was our sort of tip of the spear, and I know for sure that certain writers, like when they were pitching dialogue, they would just do it in Tom's voice in the room. They would just try it out in his voice, in his mannerism, because he just created this unique thing, and so I also he can do anything, so it's like they've never shied away from putting him in crazy situations, or there was nothing that they felt like he wasn't able to step up and make his own. So yeah, I think to a degree they would like try on scenes and dialogue with like his voice and all that. That would help them imagine where it would go. But yeah, it was very collaborative always.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, you think of that Neil Gaiman, Mike Carey comic book run as like one of the greatest comic runs like ever, essentially, right? And it's like, was there, I guess this is kind of more of like a writing question, but was there like this feeling that you wanted to capture that essence, or really was it more of like, wow, we have this, great cast and great concept, and we're kind of gonna create something original and new, kind of while still paying homage?
Well, I think you'd have to ask Joe and LD that specifically, the showrunners. I think for me, showing up as a director on the show, I wanted to, be faithful to what the writers put on the page, right? And I wanted to get that message across in the most entertaining and compelling way possible. And I kind of always say, from a TV directing standpoint, I think TV directors are doing their job, at a high level when they show you what you didn't know you wanted, right? Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the way I like to think about it, is like, yeah, it's my job to come and shoot what's on the page, but also to bring new ideas, to innovate and show you something that like maybe you never thought about, but maybe you would dig and think it would be appropriate for the show. So yeah, I think yeah, you'd have to get into those sort of motivations with the showrunners and the writers. But for me, I definitely was aware of the comics. I can't say that I was, reading every issue when I was growing up or whatever, but I knew that it was, they spend so much time with breaking these stories and writing these scripts and blood, sweat, and tears. And, I took it as a very personal challenge for me to translate that in the most innovative, interesting way possible.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video.
And subscribe and hit the bell for a whole lot more to come.